the consequences of the Russian central bank foreign reserve freeze. Because I know China had to have been paying attention to that as someone that holds. I think Russia's central bank was holding to the tune around $600 billion in foreign reserve assets that upon invasion of Ukraine were frozen. I don't think they've been confiscated officially. They've just been frozen for the time being. China holds way more than that.
Yes.
With the West. I'm not sure exactly how much more, but probably at least double. I'm sure they're concerned that at the push of a button, those assets can be frozen in times of discord, let's say.
Exactly.
What are the consequences of that in your estimation? I'm sure China's paying attention. What are they thinking as a result of this? And I think this is probably a good segue into Bitcoin too.
Definitely.
It highlights the value of money that cannot be frozen or confiscated.
Yes. It came to a big shock, of course, to everybody. And other nations are looking at this as an example, as a warning that this can happen to them as well. Okay. From that perspective, people are aware that in case of conflict and in case they're on the wrong side of the game, that this can happen to them as well. Confiscating money is nasty and it destroys trust completely. So in this geopolitical move, to conclude that about Ukraine a bit, to sum it up, my thought is that the US and NATO and UK have decided to break Russia and to slice it up into different regions to take the territory. This is the reason why the international law has been unhinged by the West when it comes to the Russian Federation at the moment. Okay. Civil rights are abused. Journalists get monitors who write the wrong thing in the West. So this is a major problem for many people to observe, and it's not good for stability. It's really bad, because that's from the rhetoric that I can see and the actions I can see from the West. They are going full power ahead. Okay. That's why I'm advocating for peace. It cannot be that we have a nuclear war, excuse me, for Ukraine. This cannot be possible. The mutual destruction is enormous. The Russians at least have a land that is big enough. Some of the people can move east, far away. The states, from that perspective, are not big enough because it will be contaminated everywhere. And Europe will be completely wiped out because we have German bases in Ramstein, near Frankfurt. This cannot happen. It must be peace that wins over war. So the unhinging of the law is a big problem. The second problem is the West advocates a unipolar world. That goes into later our discussion about the WEF. Unipolar world, rules-based. The question is, who makes the rules? Mm-hmm. I prefer a multipolar world where everybody has international law, the same book to refer to, and the judges have the same book to make their judgments.
So that unipolar world, this was the rules-based order post Bretton Woods in 1944.
Yeah.
But that freezing of Russian central bank assets essentially shattered the world into a multipolar world.
Yes. The Russians and the Chinese are pushing for that now.
Right. And so what are the knock-on effects of that? I mean, this is obviously disruptive to global trade. I'm sure it's going to be contributing to inflation, right? We just have less products and services coming to market against the backdrop of fiat currency supply expansion. So what else do you see in the wake of that?
Well, we have different groupings now. You see, the EU is the EU. It's not very big, actually. But if you look at BRICS, Brazil, Russia, India, China, South Africa. Look at the Shanghai Cooperation Organization, SCO, Russia, China, Kazakhstan, which is the 5th largest resource country in the world, by the way, oil and gas and minerals and, plutonium, uranium, etc., etc. If you look at those trends, you'll find out that the multipolar system has more to offer for partners because they can interact. If you want to say so, like Bitcoin, they're decentralized, interacting with each other, as opposed to, again, a unipolar rules-based world, which is, again, the plan of the WEF, is the unipolar rules-based global government to rule over the citizens of the world. That, in my view, cannot happen as a freedom fighter. This is the end of humanity. It's enslavement. And that's where Bitcoin comes into place, because we have inflation now. A year ago, people said, oh, inflation is good for Bitcoin price. And yes, at the beginning, when inflation started, you saw the Bitcoin price shooting up, right? And it was promoted as a store of value, inflation hedge. All the podcasts were full of it. And now we have inflation. We have severe inflation, galloping, and the Fed and the central banks in Europe are slow. They are not fast enough, in my view, to counter that effect. They're going, in my view, too slow, because politically it's very difficult to sell a crashing economy. And we have midterm elections in the US, which are in a few weeks in America. All these things play in together. So talk about Bitcoin is depressed, the price is depressed because we had some events like Terra Luna, which were disastrous for the market, because people could not believe that something goes to zero, which was promoted as a hedge and promoted as a safe asset because of algorithms. It was not. It failed. The engineering was wrong. It completely failed. So novices got afraid. They said it could happen to this, not knowing enough about Bitcoin, of course. That's why, in my view, we have a depressed price scenario for Bitcoin, and we have inflation galloping like crazy at the moment.
Yeah, I always people get a little bit overzealous, in my opinion, of trying to map current news cycle or current macro movements to present price, as if they map one-to-one. Like, if news comes out today, the price directly reflects it, or if inflation prints today, that Bitcoin's price should go up in tandem with inflation. And I always caution people that that's just not in accordance with my study of monetary history whatsoever, actually. And in fact, things get more volatile as the currency gets less meaningful, right? As the currency's inflated, prices just don't go up in some linear fashion. They go way up, way down. They become much more volatile.
Yeah.
Leading to the ultimate collapse of the currency.
Yeah.
And my case study there is, you just go look at the gold price during the hyperinflation in the Weimar Republic. Right, the price would surge and then it would collapse 80-90%, and the cycle would repeat before finally the currency of the Weimar Republic, which I think was the mark,
the Reichsmark,
that's right, was basically printed into worthlessness.
Correct.
So
like
it's
Zimbabwe.
It's not a one-for-one linear progression. It's increasing amplitude, increasing volatility before ultimate currency collapse tends to be the pattern.